What is going on, comic fam? It's your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and I am joined by comic creators Aaron and Don. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So you guys are part of the creative team for a comic series called Retro. That's out on Kickstarter right now. But we're going to talk about that a lot. But before we do that, I always like to know, have you always been into comics, or did you kind of just stumble into comics later on in life?
Yeah, Don and I come from opposite ends on that one. You want to go first, Don?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I've always been into comics. I think we might have talked about it in person, but my love of comics started when I was a little kid, probably about 5 or 6. My mom, for the first time, took me to a library, and that's where I discovered comics. I discovered old comics. So I picked up a compendium of like the old Orphan Annie strips, and Annie was hot at the time because the musical had come out and there was a movie. So I got into that, and then I discovered Batman because, I was watching Batman 66 in syndication. I discovered there were comics. And, when you're a little kid and you find out there are more stories than just what you watch on TV, I mean, that's what pulled me in right there.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm sort of the opposite. I came to the comic world late. I started off being a big time reader and loving, sci-fi and fantasy books and stuff like that, and reading all the Ursula K. Le Guin books that I could and stuff like that. And I never really got into comics. There was one comic that I loved in high school that I'm a little bit embarrassed to even mention. But for some reason, I was big into Dungeons and Dragons, and I just loved ElfQuest.
That's an amazing book. That's nothing to be embarrassed about.
No. Yeah, wait, we're talking about comic books. Like, you don't have to be embarrassed about Dungeons and Dragons at all. Like, we literally I have a show about comic books on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right, but it's just, elfin clans having sex with each other, basically, and stuff like that. So, what could be cooler, right?
They got a huge following. That's the Peonies, right?
Yeah.
Peony and her husband.
Yeah. Comic there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So then I got into like heroes and stuff.
Okay.
It was mostly through films, and that's how I really got into storytelling and stuff like that. Was watching TV and films and stuff.
Nice. So we both, completely different ends of the spectrum, really, when it came to, getting into comics. How did then actually getting into creating comics then work out for you both?
It was funny because, I discovered comics in the 80s, but I grew up in that 90s era of comics. So like all the image founders were like the dudes I loved growing up. So, the thing that brought me, I was huge into Marvel comics, except for the Batman and Superman. But what really got me into wanting to create comics was like Jim Lee doing X-Men, like that run with Chris Claremont. The way Todd McFarlane drew Spider-Man like blew my mind. It was so crazy and dynamic. So that got me into wanting to draw comics. And then, I had left for a period of time. And then it wasn't until maybe about 10 years ago that I was at a job and I wasn't feeling my job anymore. And I was like, I feel like I want to change careers and get into drawing comics like that. I just walked into a comic book store one day and rediscovered my love of comics. And I saw a comic, 3 guys. It was Chris Bachalo. He was working on X-Men at the time. Humberto Ramos was doing Civil War Wolverine. And Scotty Young was doing, I think it was not the New Mutants, but it was like an all-new X-Men. It was basically like that New Mutants kind of storyline with like, just all the young kids of X-Men. And I was like, these guys are crazy. And I fell hard back in love with comics. I was like, I feel like this is what I want to do, and I'm made for this. And I put in the work. I just started getting into it and trying to get work done. And here I am, like almost 10 years later. And I feel like I've been really lucky and really fortunate in what I've been able to do and accomplish so far.
Nice.
And if I can jump in here, I was more of a just storyteller in general, writing and film. I went to film school and I moved out to LA and I started editing TV shows and stuff. And I ended up working with Don's wife, Zalata, and we became friends. And at some point, Don started doing these, what he was calling daily doodles. and they were just cool stuff of everything from Howard the Duck to Hellboy to whatever, and they were cool. And I wanted to do this. I had written this short that I was getting. A lot of people were saying, "Hey, this is kind of a cool little script." And I knew that one way that I could get more interest is if I did what's called an animatic, where you take the storyboards and you edit them together to sort of into like this little, to show people basically what it might look like. And so I said to Don, "Hey, your daily doodles are awesome. I love them. Would you be willing to consider doing a storyboard as a daily doodle?" And Don's like, "Sure." And so he started doing daily doodles or storyboards for Retro, for the story Retro.
That's so neat. That's awesome. I love how everything just meshes in like that. Coming from two different worlds. And yeah, I was reading the press release of everything that y'all are working on and stuff. I'm like, you guys are super busy.
We're trying, man. We are trying to get it out there. And we're fortunate enough where storyboards usually are just done really rough. They're pencils, fine pencils at most. And Aaron came back after I had done just the rough pencil layouts, and he was like, "Would you mind finishing these?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, could you ink and color them?" And I was like, "Sure." And he's like, "Well, could you ink and color them in layers? Because I have this idea where I'm gonna animate them." And he essentially made a short film that was a motion comic, and we got it into the Dances with Films Festival, which is one of the longest still running film festivals out here in Los Angeles. And yeah, in 2019 it premiered at their 23rd film festival at the Chinese Grounded theaters, which is insane. So to have that honor and to have people who showed up and watched it who were total strangers and we didn't know, and they really enjoyed it, and they were affected by it in a way that I was not expecting. And I feel like Aaron and I, from that moment on, felt like we were on the right path and just wanted to further the story and, add meat to it. And that's what Aaron's done with this. And he's still working out the rest of the series, but we have the first issue down. It's in the process of being finished in terms of colors by Ellie Wright, who does a lot of work for Dynamite. She's done Batman the Shadow, so she's amazing. And then Jerome Gagnon, who I know he's going to help out with the letters. And we're just so excited for everybody, not only to see the comic in its final form, but there is also the chance to watch the live action short with us, and also to see the original animated motion comic.
That's so neat. So let's jump into Retro then. What is Retro about? And then, because there's so much, you talked about so much, John, that I want to unpack so much about the animated and the short, but let's jump into what is this? What is Retro about?
Do you want to go with this one, Aaron?
Yeah, well, so I just wanted to say that, people always say to write what you know. And this is a story about time travel, which I know nothing about, of course.
Or maybe you do, and you're just not letting us know.
I've only traveled in one direction so far, but the things that I have certain fears and worries in my life that I've incorporated into the main character of Retro. I come from a family that unfortunately suffers from Alzheimer's. So Retro is a character who can't remember where he is. All his memories are scrambled up, and he can't understand what's going on. And so I funneled that into the character. I've grown up with a lot of people who have suffered with schizophrenia. And so there's the issue of mental illness in this story. I'm a father, so all of my stories now are about fathers and sons. So that's sort of the behind the scenes, what is in my head as I was building the story for Retro. But Don, do you want to sort of say what the plot basically is?
Yeah, my fast pitch is, if you're a fan of movies like the Bourne Identity movies, the Jason Bourne series, and if you like Looper, if you like Memento, this is going to be the book for you. And that's the fast elevator pitch. But honestly, this movie ultimately is a father-son story. It is about relationships and the lengths that you're willing to go to ensure that the ones you love are safe. And that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, basically Retro is a drifter who can't remember anything except he knows he's connected to a terrible crime. And he knows that he's got this gadget embedded in his arm that when he engages it, enables him to go back in time for short spurts. But the longer he holds it down, the further he goes back in time, but the more pain and the more mixed up his memories become. So it confuses him even more. And he sets out to try and figure out his connection to this terrible crime and his relationship to this kid and he tries to solve this mystery about this riddle of his life and use the device to help him figure it out and kick some ass along the way.
That's so great. So this idea then it sounded like it started out with like a storyboard, that you guys made into the short. So where did the idea though to say, okay, now let's make this into a comic form?
I think, after doing the short, Aaron was really more interested in developing the story as a greater project. And I feel like, a movie would be great. Obviously we've done 2 shorts with an animated and a live action, but to get the full brunt of the story, like all the meat of the story, you need to expand it almost into like a novelization form, a graphic novel form. And for Aaron, the way he originally pitched it to me was he actually conceived of it as a graphic novel. I think we were looking at like a 60-80 page graphic novel, but I said it needs to be digestible, especially since I have a workload. So we should be able to get it out in single issues. So we're going the floppy route. I have a deep love for floppy. I know for some people out there, it's more about consuming graphic novels and trades, but the medium to me, the one that I fell in love with has always been floppies. And so I love the idea of just being able to get issue by issue out and maybe leave you on a little bit of a cliffhanger or just keep giving you just these little, tidbits of story to keep you coming back and keep you going. And I feel like Aaron's done a really good job of setting up one leading into issue 2.
Yeah. And what's really cool is that when Don did the storyboards, it gave me a visual feel for what Retro was going to look like, what the world we had talked about, making it a neo-noir kind of world. I had visited Kansas City in Missouri and fell in love with the idea of using the back streets of Kansas City as a backdrop to tell the story. And once he had done those storyboards and we had talked about it, that it would really be fantastic to develop it visually into this noir as a comic book. And so that's basically how it became, and that's how it started.
Nice. So you guys obviously, got connected early on in this project. How did the rest of the team get come on board?
Yeah, through Don.
Well, Jerome, we know through Travis Gibb, who does fantastic Cthulhu Invade series, and then we did
Travis
and we did Holidays.
So
yeah,
I gotta call
we did Holiday Spirits, and Holiday Spirits 2 will be coming up. So I'm sure we'll be talking about that sometime near the end of the year. So that's Jerome, and then Ellie Wright does a lot of coloring for David Avalone, who writes Betty Page and Elvira. So that she does all of his color work, and she's done color for my friend Juan Ponce, who just put out 33 through Zoop, and he debuted with Marvel Voices, so shout out to him. But yeah, she came highly recommended, and if you ever see her work, we were just blown away by it. So I colored some of the book already for pitch, and then also lettered it, and then they're just coming in to help finish out the rest of the book while I take on other projects. So it's really a joy to have them, and really an honor to have them be a part of the project and help us finish it. And then in terms of the live action short, Reno Wilson, who's been on Mike and Molly Good Girls, and Aaron are friends, and he came out to the premiere of the original short and was so blown away by it that he was like, let's make this. And that's when he came on board to be the character, and we couldn't have asked for a better person.
Yeah, so he saw the animated short at the film festival and fell in love with it and said, this is a really cool idea. Let's do the live action version and show it around to people here in Hollywood and see if we can get a little bit of traction. So that's what we did. And, so we made a short on that. And Don and I are like, well, let's just keep it going and make the comic book.
Nice. So are these, no, in the midst of this, because I know you're on Kickstarter with this project, are there going to be chances or tiers or opportunities for people to see the trailers that have dropped? Are they out there in the ethos? Like, because those sound really awesome, to kind of get the full scope of everything that you guys are creating here.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Part of our reward tiers is not only are you going to be able to get digital copies of the comic and physical copies of the comic, and there will be 2 covers. There's the regular cover, which I drew, and then there's a remix cover I did with Reno Wilson as Retro. So there's a live action cover of him, and that's going to be the limited one. But you will also get the chance to watch both shorts. So you'll get to see the original animated short. Part of that trailer is incorporated into our video, and you'll also get to watch the entire live action short. In fact, you will probably be the first to see it because I believe Aaron and Reno are submitting it to film festivals currently. And so fingers crossed, hopefully we get into some film festivals and are able to spread the word about the short film and get more people interested in the comic, because ultimately that's what we want to do. We want people to be in love with this comic, want to see where it goes, and we can't wait to show it to you guys.
Nice. Yeah. And there are teasers out there that we have made and have released, and I can send you some if you want to check them out.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I love the idea of just taking different forms of media and using them to prop up, the project in of itself. Like, you might not be into comics, but you see this, the trailer, and you're like, I want that teaser, or the teaser, you're like, I want more of that. We'll get the comic, or vice versa. How often do we read a comic? Like, I'd love to see that brought to life. And I think that's just a cool that you're using, like, all right, let's just do it all.
Yeah. And sorry.
I think we're all just scrambling to get through the zeitgeist and to sort of present our stories and show our artwork and get people to be motivated to support us and stuff like that. And so I do think that it's for any, artists and storytellers out there, I do think it's very valuable to think about just attacking in any means possible, whether you want to do a comic book or a movie or a novel or all of those things, just get it out there as much as possible. And I just believe that one, hand washes the other, and they all sort of help each other. And, we're all just artists at heart. And so, there's a lot of crossover love between all of them, I would say.
Yeah. And, this project has really been sort of that punk rock, do-it-yourself DIY ethos where, Aaron just wanted to get it made, and I just wanted to help him make it because I just thought it was such a cool idea. And, we've seen it before, but we haven't seen it with a character or a lead that is a person of color, that is able to be complex and complicated. And I think this is such a great opportunity to bring more characters like that into the zeitgeist, into our current, discussion of what's happening in the world. And you also get to see a strong father figure, which, we want to do away with the standard stereotypes of what's happening within the system. And, I think Aaron has put together a really solid, complex, and bold way of telling the story. And I feel like for this comic, I've drawn something in terms of time travel that I don't believe has been done before. And I hope everybody will find it amusing or enjoy it or be inspired by it and maybe incorporate it into some of their own storytelling. So like I said, we're really proud. And yeah, we can only accomplish so much on that punk rock ethos, right? Like, we don't have that much money as a creative team, where a lot of the funds, for our Kickstarter are going towards production of the comic and is really going towards paying Ellie and to Jerome. Aaron and I aren't taking a cut. Whatever extra may come out of this, we want to reinvest into the project. So, if anything in the future comes out, great. But if we can just get that story out there and get people to enjoy it and follow it, that ultimately is the goal that we want to accomplish here.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting that in movies, showing time travel works really well, easily, I would say, with that medium. But I would say that showing time travel, especially in short spurts, is a real challenge in a comic book. So for me, it's very exciting to see how an artist like Don, tackles that challenge and weaves it into the storytelling, and it becomes a little motif that you'll see it. It's really cool. It's really awesome. You're gonna love it. And I do think it's something that is fresh and new and exciting. And another thing about the story that I think is really important is that, we live in a world right now where there's a lot of rights and wrongs and politics of this extremes, and everyone believes in black and white and heroes and villains. Mm-hmm. And this is a character who's not really sure if he's the hero or the villain. Mm. And there's really a lot of shades of gray in this storytelling. And I think that that's an important theme for these days, when people are so divided that there's not necessarily a right and wrong answer to every issue out there.
I love that. Yeah.
It's
so thought provoking, to the idea of, because we can get so caught up on, well, this is the right way, and we don't see the other side or other views. And to have this kind of, your main character seems like he's struggling with, well, he doesn't know if he's right or wrong, and living with that tension. That's a powerful move.
Yeah, and Don has shown these shades of gray in the actual artwork, so it's really cool.
Mm. Yeah, it's neat to hear, just how different things shape how this book has come about too. Even Don with saying, like, liking the floppies rather than, the trades. And it's kind of that idea too of, like, do you go the Disney Plus, model right now where you drop one episode, or do you go the Netflix where you're like, oh, we're dropping it all in a trade? And how do you consume, comics is just like that. Do you, do it one and let it kind of marinate and, leave a little bit of a hanger, or do you just say, here, it's all right there? So I love hearing that, how that, thought process goes on too, of trying to figure that out.
We are in that weird day and age where, consumption happens in so many different forms and levels. Obviously you got Pablo the Gorilla right behind your shoulder, and that funded in 2019, and I'm working on number 2 right now. So you can have that gap of time, and people are, for the most part, I don't find that people are hating on it or okay with it. In fact, in the crowdfunding world, people are kind of almost understanding of the fact that things can get delayed. Right. And as long as you tell them what's up and, like, what's going on, I feel like that's ultimately what people want, or consumers want, in a way, is just communication. Like, yep. if you're backing a crowdfunding project on any platform, not just on Kickstarter, whether it be Zoop, Indiegogo, Crowdfunder, whatever it is, just let people know what's up with your project, and hopefully they'll come back. And for Pablo, I've been dropping previews of sketches and artwork and pages and stuff like that out there, so people know that that's coming down the pipeline. We have Retro earlier in the year, a couple months ago, Battle Grapple Rebel just dropped. So these are always projects that are just coming along, and I owe where I'm at to all the fans out there, all the people who've supported, all the friends, all the family. So that's a huge thanks to just the community, the comic book community, my own personal community, and to the crowdfunding community for being there and being open to these ideas and these projects. And that's why you've seen, crowdfunding has been responsible for more comics, I believe, in the last 4 or 5 years than any of the major publishers, which is insane. Like, people are out there and they want new stories, they want new characters, and it is a hotbed and an incubator of just fantastic storytelling and art.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, it's interesting to see that too, because it's like you said, communication is key. Because I probably have 12 or 15 projects that I've backed that 6, 7, 8 months ago that are still in the process, but it's communicating and saying, hey, yeah. And so it's going to be a glorious day when, like, oh, I got a package. I don't know what it's from. I just know I got one coming.
Right. And it's just like, oh man, what is this? And you open it up. It's like, oh my God, this is
I forgot I backed that.
Like, yeah. And I've been getting stuff the last few weeks too. I'm just like, oh man, this finally dropped. That's so cool. Yeah. But yeah, we are in a time that people are now allowed to explore their creativity, and that one wall of expense isn't there anymore, because people understand what it costs to put a page out. People understand what it costs. Like, we can tell people this because the internet has opened that up and democratized that for us. And we are in, I feel like we're in a renaissance of comics almost.
Yeah, and I think that, community is a hard thing and such an important thing, I think, because if we feel connected to one another, I think that we start seeing each other as individuals and we start feeling the love. And I think that, for myself, I'm an atheist, so I don't go to church. I don't have that community there. I'm out of school. I have a little bit of community with the other parents because I've got kids who go to school, and but it's hard to find a real community to see on an ongoing way. And in a weird way, these, as artists, the internet and these crowdfunding sources have enabled us to find a community of artists who can support each other and see each other at conventions and ultimately just become friends. And I think that that's the best part about it, really.
Yeah, this community is something else. And I've always said it. I'm like, man, if the world could operate more like the comic book community, it'd be a better place. Yeah, obviously, just like anything, you have pockets of bad parts, like game. But I mean, overall, it's a great aspect. And that's why I started doing what I was doing, because I was, I had my pockets of communities, but none of them cared about comic books. And so I'm like, well, I'm just gonna make my own comic book community and find others. And then I was like, oh, well, here we are.
Yeah.
Is that how you started doing the podcasts and stuff?
So, well, kind of. It was the funniest story really was I was at dinner with my wife and she told me, she goes, I made a fake Instagram account. I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, oh, she just wanted to do something where she had an outlet for art of like taking photos of like, and she goes, I just didn't want to, bother people with doing that, on my social medias, of my personal accounts. I was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, I want a fake Instagram account. I was like, well, what would I do? And I was like, I post about my comic books. And I started on Instagram posting about comic books and things I like. And I was like, well, let's check out YouTube. And it was a rabbit hole from there. So I can blame my wife that I got into it because of her. She gave me the idea.
But ultimately, too, like, that's what's amazing, man, is like you are showcasing what you love and you are so supportive of the indie community. And I see you out there, and almost all of my friends that I'm friends with, like we have a lot of cross section there, and I always see you pumping people up, and we're so appreciative of that, because to have people like you and other podcasts out there and other streamers that are putting a light on these indie projects, that's something that it was. You look back at what Kevin Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird did, or like what James O'Barr had to do, or like any of these indie guys that started really just at the bottom, like weren't ever with like a major pub, were just indie the entire time. And like, can you imagine if they had that resource now? They're already big, but we're talking like it would be gonzo, like, and they are already gonzo. I mean, they have fantastic properties that are out there in the world, but it's just like it's such a different thing now. And a lot of that credit goes to people like yourself doing this work. And like I said, we are thankful for it. So thanks for having us on. And,
absolutely,
giving us a little bit of a limelight.
Yeah, I'll Venmo you the money I owe you now for saying nice things about me. So,
what are you gonna do? Does this mean that you always have to have a beard?
Yeah, there's no way around it. I'm stuck with a beard. It has to have beards comic, and I'm being a bro. Like, it's funny because I originally started out as the bearded comic nerd. But I think like Twitter, it was Twitter or Instagram. One of them has one user letter shorter than the other. So I couldn't do it on, I think it was on Twitter. I couldn't be bearded comic bro on Twitter or bearded comic nerd on Twitter. So I was like, oh, I got to come up with a 3-letter word. I was like, oh, I'll be a bro. So I was stuck. Yeah, I can't. If I shave my beard, I'm
Yeah.
then it'd be like babyface comic bro, and it wouldn't work.
I know. But you can always put on the fake beard.
Right.
Just like,
yeah.
look real suspect, just super sus.
I think my kids would freak out now if they're like, "What? Your face looks weird, Dad."
My dad shaved his beard for the first time when I was like 15, so it was a trip.
Yeah, you're like, wait a second.
Who's this guy?
Yeah.
So retro, I hesitate to ask because it sounds like there's so many ideas. Is this kind of a one-shot comic, or is this like if people dig it that you're like, we're hoping to expand the world even more?
Yeah, I think, Aaron, your ultimate goal is to do 6 issues. Was that what you told me?
No, 12.
No. 12, there we go.
So limited series is the idea.
Okay.
But, there could be a couple of volumes of graphic novels, perhaps, or something like that.
Nice.
Yeah. If Don's up for it.
I'm up for anything.
I don't know. I think Don's already like, oh, you said 6, right? Not 12.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like my workload's already.
Yeah. So we're going maxi. Yeah, we're going maxi with this then. We're doing a maxi series.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea is, we want to get it out there, and Aaron has a direction and a world that he's already built. And if you look at the book and you read through it, you already get a sense of what that world is. And his characters are fleshed out in his mind, and he may tweak it here and there, based on us going back and forth on his scripts. But other than that, like, he has a very clear vision and a very clear path of what he's laid out to do. And hopefully we get everybody to come on board and check it out, and everybody loves it. And I think that it's a lot of fun. You guys are going to like what you see.
Yeah, one of the things I'm very excited about is that there is, in my opinion, a very cool ending to the whole series that we would love to be able to build up to and tell the whole story. And so that's our ultimate goal, is to build our way to far enough so that we can tell that ending properly and have it make sense and everyone feel it and enjoy it and love it.
Nice. That's cool. I know this is coming out on Kickstarter. And one of the things I love about Kickstarters are to see just different tiers and stuff that are offered. Is there a tier on Kickstarter that, you guys are excited about getting to offer?
There is one particular tier that was suggested by Reno Wilson, and so we decided to go with it. It is the baller tier. It is Breaking Bread with Reno Wilson. That is, I believe, it's the $5,000 mark, which would completely fund the Kickstarter. But basically, you would be spending, I believe, an afternoon with us, just hanging out, grabbing drinks or lunch or whatever it may be. And then you would have your own screening of the live action short. You would also receive, I believe it's both covers signed by the creative team of Aaron and myself and Reno. And that would be CGC slabbed of at least a minimum grade of 9.6, as well as all the other physical and digital goodies that are involved in all the previous tiers, or all the preceding tiers leading up to that point. So that's our most insane package. But there is a screener package that includes a CGC graded book, slab minimum 9.4 for those collectors out there that are really into that sort of thing. Just sort of a memento keepsake of the start of our series, as well as there's an original art tier. And I believe that is a limit of 9 because the baller tier has a sketch involved in that too. So I'm doing 10 original pieces for this. And we're talking about backing board con style sketches. And if you've ever seen my sketches, or if you've never seen my sketches, please go to winningit.com. That, I think my shirt's backwards currently, but it's my last name, Nguyen, add an INGIT to that.com. And you can check out all of my artwork. I've been very fortunate the last few years. I'm an Upper Deck Marvel sketch card artist. I've done some variant covers for friends. My last one was the Steak Presents Just Me cover for Scout Comics.
Nice.
That was a collector's exclusive for the Collective out in Orlando. So shout out to the Collective Comics store out there, and to Travis Gibb for hooking that up. So I hope I've done David Byrne and Francesca Fantini proud. That book I cannot hold onto. It has completely sold out on my end. I believe they're down to their last few copies over there. But yeah, so I also am really proud of being one of those artists that will get you your commissions during the convention, if not soon after, if you have a large piece. So yeah, I love doing commissions, and we are proud to offer a tier with original sketches.
Yeah, and one of the tiers that if you do happen to be a comic book fan and a Reno Wilson fan, if you love Mike and Molly or Good Girls, there's another tier where you can get a personalized message from Reno.
Oh yeah.
Where he'll call you up and wish you a happy birthday, or if you have a friend who's a fan or something like that. So that could be a fun tier as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's what I need to get that tier, because my mother-in-law always makes fun of me, like, oh, you like comics. And then like we went to a Comic-Con one time, and like Henry Winkler was there, and I was like, oh, what about this? And she's like, okay, that's cool. So like when comics cross over into pop culture world, it makes me cooler.
There you go,
guys.
So my first job in LA was working as a post-production assistant and the executive on a show called Sightings, which was a TV show about Bigfoot and UFOs, and ghosts. And the executive producer walked into my office and said, hi, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Henry Winkler. And I was just like, oh my God, the Fonz, And he was, I don't know if you know this, but he is the nicest guy in Hollywood. They're just so charismatic, other than Reno Wilson. And he is just wonderful to be around, a real sweetheart.
It was the night. So we met him at one con. He was going up and just shaking everyone's hand as people are prepping, as like his handlers were prepping stuff and talking to people and interacting. And like, so the next time we saw him at a con, I asked him, I'm like, hey, like, is it weird? But like my mother-in-law is a big fan. Like, can we FaceTime? And he's like, oh, absolutely. He goes, yeah. And like, he's like talking about, all right, nope, hold the phone, honey, hold the phone down so I can see your face. Like, it just was he's the nicest guy ever. So good. So it's funny that I brought that name up, and it's brought this interview full circle.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And I don't know if you guys are watching Barry, but he's fantastic on Barry.
Yes.
So good.
Yeah. He told us, he's like, are you watching Barry? We're like, no, not. He goes, well, you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody out there who hasn't seen Barry, watch Barry. It is a crazy show.
Yeah. So that's so cool to hear about those different tiers. And, I'm glad that I have, some original Dawn work right there myself. So
thank you for coming by.
That was a Baltimore Comic-Con exclusive.
Yeah.
But I hesitate to ask, as we're wrapping up here, because obviously a lot going on with Retro, but is there anything else that y'all are working on that you want to hype up or promote a little bit right now before we wrap up?
Don, do you want me to go first or second, Don?
Yeah, you go first. I always have a ton of stuff.
Okay. So there are some things in the works, but who knows when they're ever going to come out. I'm working on a low budget horror film. And It's funny that you mentioned Henry Winkler, because he was in, of course, the Scream movie with Matthew Lillard, who is one of the friends with Reno, and Reno is interested in producing it, and he may possibly be interested in starring in the film. Nice. And it's about an Amber Alert about these guys who follow this car out into the middle of nowhere where there's a farmhouse, and things go from bad to worse from there.
So cool.
Yeah.
So neat. Awesome.
That's all I got for now.
That's perfectly enough.
Yeah, that sounds killer. I want to see that.
Right?
If there's a chance for me to do the poster for that, let me know.
Yeah, for sure.
I, of course, with this project, Battle Grapple Rebel should be printed by now, and I may have copies when you see this. For anybody out at Heroes Con, actually this will be probably after Heroes Con, but I'll have it ready for San Diego Comic-Con. So that will be the next big event for me. So that will be July 20th through the 24th. So if you are headed to San Diego Comic-Con, please come find me. I will be at HH03, or as I call it, HO, in Artist Alley. I'll be next to the amazing Carl Altstetter and down from David Mack. So just go find the more famous people, and I'm kind of right next to them. And my commissions list will be open. And then I'm working on Pablo the Gorilla #2 currently. I'm calling the project, my working title is Dropping the Deuce. So right now I'm just doing fine pencils, and then I'm going to be working and reworking that until I feel like I got to where it needs to be. And then I have Baltimore Comic-Con coming up in October. So I'll be seeing you there, hopefully.
Yes, if all goes to plan. So
yeah, if all goes to plan. And then after that, it'll probably be back to retro, working on that, and then probably working on the next issue of Battle Grapple Rebel. And then sometime in the fall, I hope to do an art drop. I finished in spring a brand new set for Marvel Upper Deck. So hopefully we'll be able to show artwork from that series coming up soon.
And Don, are we able to say anything about how we're teaming up at Comic-Con San Diego?
Oh, we cannot mention that, but we will be on panels. Yeah, we'll leave it there.
That's good enough for me.
Yeah. What a tease.
So, well, where can everyone follow along with both of you to know, like, stay up to date on when stuff drops and when stuff's coming out?
Yeah, so for Retro, the Kickstarter, the best way to follow us is just go to whoisretro.com, whoisretro.com. And you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Mr. Jump Cut, all one word, MR Jump Cut, Mr. Jump Cut on Instagram and Twitter.
Nice.
And I am at Winning It basically everywhere, as far as I know.
Okay.
It is trademarked, so shout out to my legal team for doing that. But it is my last name, the most common Vietnamese last name there is, which is Nguyen, pronounced like win a ball game. It's Nguyen, add an INGIT to that, and that is my social media handle, as well as winningit.com is my website if you'd like to check out what is currently in print and available for purchase. It'll lead you to my Etsy store or to Amazon, where you can pick up the official 2017 Inktober project and Kindle #1 book, Siren Song with Andy Nordvall. Shout out to Andy.
Nice. And all the links for the Kickstarter, both the social media website stuff, will be in the description of this video. Or if you're listening to the podcast, click on the description of the podcast to get all the information and follow along with these great creators. And just excited for Retro, and I'm excited to see what else y'all are working on. So thank you so much for just taking some time to talk about comics with me.
Thank you so much for having us on, man. Like I said, it is always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to see you, but also thank you so much just for being, such a trumpeter for indie comics. Like, it's always amazing to see what you're out there doing for us. And it's always great to have a voice out there.
Yeah, we're just so grateful to be a part of this and to have an opportunity to geek out with you. It's really cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you both. And with that being said, hopefully you can find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out. Peace.